Hello, I'm Dango Rose. Welcome to the Mountaineer Podcast, where everybody's listening. The Mountaineer brings you the latest news of the Peak to Peak region, in print, online, through our podcast, social media, and special publications. Now, listen in to the latest news of the area with our local journalists.
Out in the meadow, in tall grass, below the castle, dirt got wedged under our nails when we were little.
Welcome back to the Mountaineer Podcast, where everybody's listening. I'm Art DeVitalis.
And I'm Cynthia Davis. Now for this week's news.
This episode is brought to you by Hart's Backhoe, Brightwood Music, Very Nice Brewing Company, The Mountain Man Outdoor Store, and of course, the Mountaineer newspaper.
Our new theme was created and produced by Haley Gowland of The Smallest Giant. The song is called Castle. You can find out more at HaleyGowlandMusic.com or check out The Smallest Giant on Spotify.
The calamity of monotony left to those who can't contrast.
For our lead story today, we'll talk to Amber Cusano of Gilpin Cares and Gilpin Cleans. Her business has been making a big impact in the lives of seniors in Gilpin, Boulder County, and beyond.
My name is Amber Cusano. I am the owner of Gilpin Cleaning Company and Gilpin In-Home Healthcare Agency. I've been in the medical profession for almost 20 years and up in Gilpin County for around 4 years, and very connected in the community, and just was observing over the last handful of years elderly people being discharged from the hospitals with referrals for in-home health care and such. And unfortunately, because of the rural area we live in, there aren't too many nurses or physical therapists or in-home caregivers that can drive these roads. So last year I decided that I would venture out and try and start this in-home healthcare agency, which is still in the process of being licensed. I'm trying to get Medicare and Medicaid certified. I would love for the company to be dedicated to our rural mountain towns and to the elderly up here that need us so much. It is very sought after up here, which is why I have really tried since about the middle of last year to try and get the ball rolling on things. And then the cleaning company is a branch of the caregiving company, and it's doing wonderfully. There's tons of clients for us up here. We keep getting new people every day, and we're so very lucky for the business. And then hopefully once COVID and the vaccinations kind of simmer down, hopefully by the end of this year, they'll be able to do the in-person audits that I need to get licensed, and we can get the caregiving company up and running. One of the specialties that we pride ourselves in, something that I've worked in the field for many years, is hospice and palliative care. We've been honored to help clients up here in our mountain town that are at the end of their life, helping them and their families transition and deal with all of the emotions that come along with that. And I consider that an honor. I feel very privileged to be able to guide families and people through the last stage of their life, and it's something that is super fulfilling for me. It's not just palliative care that we do. We offer many services at the agency. We can come and do meal preps for people that might have diabetes or have been recently diagnosed with cancer and need to adjust their diet. I have wonderful people in the community like nutritionists, women that specialize in yoga, and all kinds of wonderful holistic care that have partnered with the agency and offered their services as well. There's many different facets to what we do. I'm excited to finally be able to offer these services to the community, and I can't wait to officially introduce ourselves to everyone.
So how does cleaning factor into home health care, and is it important compared to the care itself?
Oh, it's very important. You know, they say cleanliness is next to godliness. Being able to take some of the weight off of the family members or the clients themselves, cleaning and making sure the house is tidy and healthy is very important. We specialize in all kinds of different cleans. We've actually branched out recently to do Airbnb cleaning and also move in and move out for new buyers or sellers. So that's been a new added feature recently. But the mainstay will always be trying to help our community, specifically the local people up here, and have a dedicated agency that can be kind of a one-stop shop for everyone. Whatever the little services that they need or the big services that they need, whether I can provide it or not, I have wonderful networks in the community and would love to be able to help anyone I can.
So we asked about patients and any that have stood out to her since she started this type of work.
Oh my gosh, there's so many. I wouldn't even be able to separate them out. Every family that we interact with, we really do bond with, and I wouldn't be able to name any names, but there have been several people up here in the Gilpin area that we have been lucky enough and blessed enough to help with their family members' end-of-life services, and it's just been an absolute honor, really, to stand by their side and help the families and the siblings and the parents or whoever it may be, guide them through that last transition of life. And I can't see myself doing anything else besides what I'm doing. It's just really such an honor and so fulfilling for me to be able to be by their side and help them through every stage of end-of-life care. The peace that comes with knowing that you were able to help the person that's passing on be pain-free and to help the families find some peace and help them communicate in that last bit of time to make sure that, they don't look back on this situation years down the road and say, I wish I had said this or I wish I had done that. Those are the insights that I have from the experience and the time that I've spent in the medical field, and I really do feel like being able to guide them is where I belong. It's an honor, like I said.
COVID-19 has affected the work somewhat, but it honestly doesn't faze Amber or her workers as long as they manage it and minimize the possibility of exposure for the clients.
Well, we've been trained to deal with COVID, and I've been in the medical field, like I said, for a long time. So quarantining wasn't that big of a deal, to be honest with you. I'm lucky enough to have a great group of caregivers that have offered their services over the times that I've been doing this and have been able to actually isolate with the clients and do 24-hour shifts so that there are minimal interactions with people outside of the house. We would actually stay there, cook for them, clean for them, care for them, bathe them, keep them in contact through Zoom meetings or whatever application to talk to their family members, and have walked them through the majority of the quarantine. And now everyone's being vaccinated, and hopefully we can go back to some kind of normalcy here soon. I just want to thank everyone for being so supportive. Since I announced trying to open the company last year, I've gotten amazing feedback from our local communities, whether it's in Gilpin or Black Hawk or Nederland. I know people are very eager for this to be available to our community, and I want everyone to know that I'm working diligently to have everything taken care of through the state, and I'm doing everything I can to get Medicare and Medicaid certified, which is a very difficult process for a small business. It takes a really long time. I'm doing everything I can to get that done, and I really do hope by the end of the year to be able to have that completed and have those in-person audits done through the state so that I can start serving my community like I had that original goal for. So just thank you to everyone for being so supportive, and know that I will continue to work to support our community's elders, and it's my number one goal to be of service to everyone in our community.
Thank you, Amber. And here's where you can find out more on these small businesses with huge heart for what they do.
Right now, we have Facebook pages where people can reach out to me for cleaning services. The agency, the healthcare agency, does have a Facebook page. I had a website up for a little bit, but because of my pending licensing with the state, I have to be very careful about advertising and not having that license audited yet. So I've taken the website down. The Facebook page can be found at Gilpin Cares, and then the cleaning page can be found at Gilpin Clean. So it's very simple. You just search those in your search tab, and you can come up to either of those pages. And with the caregiving company right now, if it's something that's needed in the community that I can't help with until we get that proper license, I am offering referrals and assistance to the community for free. So if there is something that anyone needs, or they're just starting out trying to find services for someone that needs palliative care or caregiving services for a few hours a day or overnight shifts, I have great references, so I hope anyone that needs it reaches out, and if it's something I can't help with, I can definitely find someone who can.
To the news desk.
Brightwood Music in Nederland has all your favorite stringed and fretted instruments, percussion, brass, woodwinds, and more accessories than they can count. When you buy an instrument from Brightwood, it comes professionally set up by a luthier with over 40 years experience.
They also offer in-house repairs on stringed and fretted instruments. From restring to refret to rebuild, they've got you covered. And in-person and online lessons are offered as well. Brightwood Music is family-owned and operated.
Gilpin County is COVID-19 testing at Gilpin County Public Health Office, 101 Norton Drive, every Thursday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. You can sign up at www.primarybio.com. Please pre-register prior to arrival.
Free COVID tests are available at the Nederland Community Center every Thursday from 4 to 6 p.m. No appointment or ID is required for this.
The Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment has a list of vaccination sites in the state. You can register with any of those sites as well. Check out more information at covid19.colorado.gov.
The Town of Nederland's Envision 2030 project is seeking public feedback during the month of April from the community on the vision, state goals, and objectives laid out by this plan. RSVPs are required for all-person and virtual public charrettes. Visit nederlandco.org/envision-2030 for more, or contact Town Hall at 303-258-3266 for more information.
The Mountaineer newspaper is working on senior profiles during all of April and May. If you're a senior, please reach out to us at publisher1977@gmail.com for more information. We have student interns and staff reporters to help create your story for this annual celebration of graduation.
And now we'll head to Dango Rose for an interview with Kort McCumber. Take it away, Dango and Kort.
All right, this is Dango Rose with the Mountaineer Everybody's Listening podcast. My guest today is Left Hand Canyon resident, Kort McCumber. How you doing, Kort?
Hello. I'm great, man. It's good to get reconnected with you. Good to chat with you this afternoon, my man.
Yeah, right on. Well, it looks like you are connecting with us in a vocal booth right now. Where are you at?
I didn't even plan this, but I love how this worked out, that I'm actually doing a podcast from a legitimate recording studio up in Rollinsville. I'm at Bird Nest Recording, Ray Smith and Carrie Miner's worldwide headquarters, the Strange Birds worldwide headquarters.
That's amazing, the Strange Birds. So you're at Ray's place right now in Rollinsville. What are you working on?
So right now we're putting the finishing touches on an instrumental record that Moores and McCumber will be putting out officially to the public in October, but we're doing some pre-release. We'll start releasing some singles from the instrumental record. We've never done this before. We are a singer-songwriter, Americana/Irishy/folk duo. Half of us are based. I'm based at Left Hand Canyon, and James Moore's in Superior, Wisconsin. So we're putting out a 10-song record. That's in Irish terminology. Songs are with words and tunes are without words. So 10 songs and 10 tunes this time around. So finishing touches on the instrumental portion, and it's going to be called Companion Volume 1. And I believe we got you on it as well, don't we, Mr. Rose?
Well, yes, I actually just laid down some upright bass about 30 minutes ago, so this all works out just perfectly fine.
Timing couldn't be better, and I would expect nothing else from you. Is this is the last day of working on the project, and you get in right under the radar. It's just how I've known you now for 20 years, too. Almost, 20 years, dude.
Yeah, I'm humbled and honored to play on this. The music is brilliant, Kort. Your instrumental stuff is just soul-stirring, I guess you could say. So I'm stoked to get in under the wire and to join the record. So
I'm really excited to have you on this project. I think this project's going to do something a little different for Moores and McCumber than what people are normally heard us play. The one thing that James and I have going for us is that we have opposite strengths. He's the main lyricist of the duo. He's a great melody writer and great rhythm player. He plays quite a few instruments nowadays, more than he did when you knew him, when you first met him, Dan. He's playing Irish bouzouki, mandolin, and ukulele now on top of acoustic guitar and electric guitar. So it's pretty exciting that we get to switch up more often than we used to. But this instrumental music was kind of born out of, it goes back about 10 years after the first time James and I went to Ireland, just hearing all of the phenomenal musicians over there and them playing old traditional Irish music that went back hundreds of years. And I got really inspired by that. But, last week when you and I talked, another big part of getting me psyched to do this music as well is when I heard your instrumental called The Pasture on an Elephant Revival record, and just fell in love with that. And I started thinking to myself, man, if I could mix this new music in my head, the new Irish melodies and the new music with my background playing cello in orchestras as a kid in classical piano, I'd love to see how that could kind of come together. And I kind of heard that on, The Pasture, like you guys, having a classically trained violinist in that band and you playing double bass and mandolin. It's like there was a nice mixture of, that arco, the bowed music on fretless instruments combined with the sound of fiddles and banjos and mandolins. I just love that mixture of stuff. And I've kind of told people about this, like this music to me is chamber music for people that don't like chamber music. Definitely the first, for first half of my life, I guess first 18, 16 years, I was forced to play classical music, and I'm really glad that my mom made me do it because it's definitely benefited me in this, the last 20 years of being a singer-songwriter and multi-instrumentalist, to be able to pull from that, to understand enough theory and to understand, to take each different instrument to its absolute zenith, like to get the most out of a stringed instrument and the most out of a piano to conjure up those melodies. I mean, for me, I've written a lot of songs over the years and put out my own solo records, which you and I have obviously played on for a while back in, I guess, 06, 07. We were talking about that as well. But, to then branch out and not force myself anymore to always have to write lyrics because I have, my musical partner is so good at such a wordsmith that it kind of really freed me up in definitely the last 10 years to just not worry about forcing myself to write songs with words, which I was doing, I felt like towards the last time I made a solo record. Like I was really kind of piecing together enough songs for me to put out my solo record, not realizing that I could actually shouldn't have been, beating myself up over not writing those when I could just let it flow naturally, which is what happened with these instrumentals. I mean, it literally, I'd be in my studio up Left-Hand Canyon, and the stuff really came in off the wind and listening to the creek right outside my window. It's like, I try not to, I know you and I've had a lot of conversations over the years about just kind of letting that muse and letting the daemon and letting, not getting in the way of yourself. And I feel like it took me a long time to finally get to that point of just allowing this stuff to happen instead of forcing it. I remember a conversation I had with you right when you guys were about to play your first Red Rock show. And I was like, man, wow, I'm so proud of you guys and proud of you, man. I was proud of you for getting it to that point. And I was just like, hey, man, you guys are in for one hell of a ride. Hold on. He's like, no, man, it's the opposite of that. I got to let go. And I'm like, oh, bingo. That's what it is. It's not holding on. It's not squeezing it. No, let it come to you. And I've just been reading a lot of stuff lately too about being creative. And, the creative well never runs dry. It's continually will come back the more you're creative. It doesn't run out. It runs out if you're not paying attention to the muse visiting. Like the muse is gonna, if it's showing up that much, you better pay attention to it and get that idea down, because it's gonna keep coming back and visiting if you continue to do that. If you don't, is when it'll go find somebody else.
That's right. And so the key is that you have to just kind of keep on listening.
Keep on listening. Yes, absolutely. And for me, living up in the mountains, that really is what has stirred my creativity the last, I've lived up, my wife and I, Amy and I've lived there for 16 years now. And I would say I've never been as productive as living in that place. There's definitely I can feel the energy there, and it's really something special. And it's allowed me to, keep pushing my musicianship. And that's kind of been my goal all along, is like, how far can I take this stuff? I've always wanted to improve on my instrument. it was never like, man, if I make a cooler looking poster, or how do I promote myself better? Like, my focus was always on, let's write the best thing possible. And I think the other stuff will happen.
Yeah, and you found a partner in James Moores that you guys are able to accentuate each other's strengths by also honing in and just sort of, we all have limitations. So it's like we find ourselves connected with the right people at the right time to sort of accentuate the strengths of each other. And that's a beautiful thing about musical collaboration.
I love that aspect of it so much, because we do have opposite strengths. And you saying the thing about the weakness, I mean, James and I talk about this a lot, is, our limitations are what we push up against. And that is basically ends up becoming our signature sound. Like, I'm not the main lyricist. Like, we get together and we write all this stuff together to not put that pressure on. Like, so the limitations would be like, I play a bunch of instruments and I hear harmony very naturally. James is, mainly guitar player, but he's writing these beautiful melodies with these such heartfelt and poignant lyrics. And he's a great lead singer. So it's like us coming together it's not like we're forcing ourselves to all of a sudden, like a lot of duos will be like, okay, 10-song album. Kort, you write 5, I'll write 5. You sing lead on 5, I sing lead. There's the album, because of ego, or however. And maybe that's not, fair for some duos to say it's about ego. But James and I kind of threw that away when we realized, okay, what will make the best song? No matter what combination it is of who's singing what part, it's really like, okay, this is what I hear naturally. I think cello would sound great on this song, and it'll sound great with your guitar, your lead vocal with my higher harmony over it. This is now we're going to see how far we can take that right up against our limitations and keep trying to push that and push those boundaries to continue to create a new sound. Like, not ever be stuck on, well, people have already branded us a folk duo, so that's, I guess, what we are. It's like, I'm not interested in playing one style of music or being stuck in one situation. I think that's what's really lucky too, is that James feels the same way. So we're both completely on the same page when it comes to what do we want to create. And the answer's always been, what makes this song better? What's the best song?
Right.
What's the best piece of music? I don't care who plays what, who sings what, who's written what. Is it better?
Yeah.
Then that's the road we're taking then.
Creation, it makes me think of this. Creation is an act of service. And so when we're creating, we're kind of acting in service to the song that's wanting to come through.
Absolutely love that. And I've also talked a lot with James about, I feel like I've had so much support over the years from musicians and non-musicians. And during this pandemic, it's really made me realize, like, to keep going through all this, just like you have, and to see people step up to make sure you don't stop doing it and keep putting out the energy in the music, which is, to me, is that, that is putting out love and good vibes to this world. But I feel like there's a complete obligation on my part to continue this.
Yeah, it's been an interesting year for sure. Just finding solace in the studio, creating when able, and then at other times going through periods of phases of like being in the desert, as you'd say. Like nothing's coming through. And it's like, what do you do in those places when you aren't hearing the muse, and that's just more of a question, because then it always ends up coming around in like the most surprising or unexpected of ways, is what I found.
Yes. And I think the one thing that always keeps me going is the absolute joy and magic of when an idea does come to you and you're able to go into a recording studio and actually recreate what's going on in your head. And when you pull it off, to realize, wow, okay, I can still do this no matter how long it's been between those kind of the desert areas. Like when it does happen to me, I'm always just like, okay, that's awesome. It visited again. And a big part of it for me is, and this took me a very long time, because I would say it wasn't until my early 40s where I was like, wait, oh, wow. So I'm not in control of this, which is, that's such a breakthrough to realize that if I can just be a compassionate, empathetic human being with an instrument in my hand, also being a creative human being, the the idea and the energy in that little idea fairy will come around a lot if you allow it to and don't get in the way.
It's always great speaking with you, always great connecting with you, and I truly look forward to more to come. Where can people find out more about you, and when are these albums going to be released? Anything you want to let our listeners know about how to hear more of your music?
So people can find out about Moors and McCumber at moorsandmccumber.com, MOORS, and McCumber, MCCUMBER.com. The record's going to be officially released to the world probably this fall, but we did just get done doing a Kickstarter campaign, so the people that got in on that will be able to get the music early. We're also going to start doing a pre-purchase. We'll have a pre-purchase link probably starting in May, and we're going to start, we have a couple videos already made, one for one of the songs called Survival. That's what the song record's called. And then we have an instrumental video, or for a video for one of the instrumentals that will be coming out. I think May is when we're going to start dropping some of those singles that will be available for people to stream by then. But for all the info about that, yeah, moorsandmccumber.com.
Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, this is great music, great instrumentals, great songs. Get your ears on it when you can. Moors and McCumber, Kort McCumber, local resident of the Peak to Peak. My name's Dango Rose with the Mountaineer Everybody's Listening podcast. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to hearing you soon.
Thanks, you two, and we look forward to the album's release.
The Mountaineer has advertising packets that include print, social media, online, and podcast. Email publisher1977@gmail.com for more info on a marketing plan for all your business needs.
The Mountaineer has the only weekly classified ads that cover the entire Peak-to-Peak region. There are several job postings with local businesses looking to hire local staff. The paper also has homes and apartments for rent, services, a business directory, and much more. Check it all out at themtnear.com and click on Classifieds.
Community champions have been announced. For the next 4 weeks, we'll highlight all 18 nominees in the Mountaineer podcast. First up, it's Outstanding Youth nominations.
First up, Orion Bruno is a hardworking young man that has faced a lot of difficulty and adversity in his life, overcoming this to succeed.
Olivia Medina is up next, nominated for her kindness, determination to succeed, and challenges herself in the face of adversity. She goes the extra mile at Chinook, taking classes and putting a lot of work into obtaining her diploma.
And last but not least, for the youth category, Tabitha Lamb demonstrates the hard work ethic and will like her fellow nominees. She's helped to build a school garden and compost system and leads by example with a smile on her face.
For our final story today, we'll talk to Alexander Joseph, a writer for the Mountaineer who recently released a book in a quest for family history.
My name is Alexander Shalom Joseph. That's my writing name. Some people may know me by a different name in this area. It's not my real last name, but yeah, I write in the paper under Alexander Joseph, and recently I'm publishing a chapbook through this small press in Canada called Above Ground Press. And a chapbook, for those who may not know, is it's like a collection of poems that aren't book length per se, but they're like, usually 20 to 40 pages. And this is one long poem. This book is about my Grandpa Jack, my great grandpa, who came to America, and it's all about he was a button maker in New York City, but it's kind of all about me not really knowing where my family is from and trying to understand where we were from and doing some research. This is kind of like an essay and a poem, and I don't know, I felt like this format of a handmade book from some guy who really cares about bookmaking was a perfect format for this poem to be put out into the world. So I like to say that I started writing poetry on the subway in New York, which I guess is kind of both a cliche and also maybe sort of romantic. I'm from the mountains. I'm from this area. I grew up in Rollinsville. 1 year of my college was spent in New York City, and I would take the subway for 50 minutes to work at this office. And it turns out that the office that I was working at was actually right next door to where my great-grandpa used to work and make buttons. And I'd been going there for almost a year, and I had no idea until I FaceTimed my grandma, and she said, "Oh, that's where my father worked." I was riding the Q train which was the same train that he used to ride, which was called the Seabreeze Express back when he was around. I had this little red notebook that was in my pocket of my coat. There's so much input in New York, and I was just kind of overflowing with input, you know, and I just started writing these little poems about what I saw around me. And since then, that was when I was around 20 years old. So for the last, 7 years, I'm almost 27.
So, what's the inspiration behind this, and what led to its creation?
Oh, that's a good question. So I guess my answer to that comes kind of in the form of a story, which I think a lot of good answers do. While I was growing up, and this was kind of the impetus for this book, which was basically just a long poem. In my parents' kitchen, there's a map. Okay, and it's made by my great-grandpa Jack. On the back of these forms, you know how they used to have those forms that you have to do in triplicate? The white form goes to the customer, and then there's the yellow and the pink form, right, when you fill out those sort of receipts. He was from a shtetl in Belarus, and one day during his lunch break in New York, he taped together a bunch of the receipts, and he drew from memory a map of his hometown. And so that is what is hung on my parents' wall. A lot of people in my family have a copy of it because it's kind of like the only artifact of the town that, my mom's side of the family is from that we have. And growing up, I knew the story of that, but I didn't have any idea what it was. The push for this poem was like, I want to do it's kind of like a research project in the form of a poem where I try to figure out what this town is. Where is it? I didn't even know it was in Belarus. I didn't know what the name was. I didn't know really where he was from or what had happened to it, because a lot of these shtetls, which are like, little Jewish towns, very similar to like Nederland in kind of just these mountain towns in the middle of the Soviet Union era. A lot of these places were wiped off the map through war or through the Holocaust. I had no idea what it was. The only memory that I knew of the town was from my great-grandpa, and it was his first memory, and it was of Russian soldiers kicking in the door of his house. And they were hiding under the bed, and they took the bread that his mother had made. So they kind of fled to America, and he arrived in America in like 1913, and he was born in 1901. And I actually got to know him. He lived to be 104, so I met him a lot when I was younger, but he died, when I was like, I think 8 or something. And so he's kind of been like this artifact of my life that he brought pieces of me to America. And without him leaving, we might not have survived as a family, So
Definitely.
Based on what I can understand is like the Russian Sino war, but there is also a lot of pogroms going on during that time, which is when the government would send in soldiers to disrupt and burn down Jewish villages. And that was ongoing from like the late 1800s until basically the Holocaust. So it was a genocide against Jews before the Holocaust, and that's kind of what pushed a lot of Russian Jews to America.
So what's the feedback been like for the poetry and work in the newspaper?
My grandpa came through Ellis Island as well, and that's part of this poem. I guess one thing that I want to say is that, so this poem is written, I guess, more on like the content level. It's called a sonnet. It's called a Royal Crown of Sonnets. And basically what that is, a sonnet is 14 lines, right? And the way that a royal crown works is that the last line of each previous poem is the first line of the next poem. And then the final poem is all of the last lines put together. And the reason I wanted to do that, I think of a sonnet crown as like DNA strands, kind of a generational pass down. Like each poem is getting its beginnings from something else, sort of like my great-grandpa gave me my beginnings in America. So that's kind of the reason I wanted to do that. And people are like, oh, I read your poem or I read your article about Forrest Anderson or whatever, and it's really been motivating for me to be like, okay, maybe there is a use for my writing, and it's been meaningful to be connected with the community, which is part of why I wanted to, talk about it here and, get it written about in the paper, not just for, shameless self-promotion, but mainly because I'm excited to share my work with the community because I value everybody's opinion, and I'm a product of this community, and it's exciting to be sharing my art with them. The website is called Above Ground Press. You can just Google that and you'll see my book. He prints a lot of chapbooks, so you'll see it on there. And then if you'd like a copy, they're for sale for $5. you can email me and I'll bring it to your house. My email is alexanderjosephpoetry@gmail.com. So I'm going to be getting a bunch of copies and be sending them out all across the country, the world even. I have some friends in Spain that are excited to receive it, so we're going to figure out how the international mailing system works. But yeah, I'm excited to share it with the community. All the money that I get will be going to support this guy's press. I'm not going to be making any money off it.
And of course, we had to ask him to read some of the book to us. Listen to how this chapbook plays out, first at the start and how it comes together at the finish.
But yeah, so it's called Buttons and Bones. If you get the book, my friend Jaden, who's a wonderful artist, Jaden Dawkin, she drew the cover of it. This is kind of the intro poem. A button falls from a pair of blue and square patterned pants. I don't know how to sew it back on. I have a bag of buttons my great-grandfather made. Hot cut, formed by metal and Semitic hands. I have no thread, no steady hand to guide a needle, no way to pull the fallen parts together. I shove the pants in my hallway closet, hide them in the past away, a threadless button loose in the pocket. Then I sleep, dream of textiles and family and dirt, of an unlabeled map, a scribbled clearing, of a flattened shtetl, a hometown fled before the war, of bodies buried behind the linen factory, of all our stories starting and ending in the same smoke. So that's the intro, and then the actual sonic crown begins right now. Dream homeland dirt under chipped, jagged nails. Bare hands scrape soil to broken branches, bullet casings, and barbed wire. Old loaves of great-great-grandmother's famous challah bread. I wake to a hand-drawn map of a town with no name. I begin to fill blank spaces with a blue ballpoint pen. First a longing, then a resonance in the form of pictures in my night. Something beckons across the sea, goosebump chills across arms, suntan necks, covered heads of a mass with blood in common. I run a hand down blurred tips of blossom buds, past time-worn oak to earth-wet roots, spreading out beyond sight into warm dark. So the next poem will start with spreading out beyond sight into warm dark. So that first poem is kind of a little bit of an imagining of what it's like to do research back into the past. And then the poem goes on from there, following my great-grandpa across the sea, talking about his journey through Ellis Island, finding some research about what happened to the small town, which is named Dubrovna in Belarus, and how it's, what happened during the Holocaust and all the research that I found, and then ultimately ending up with the shooting at a synagogue, the Tree of Life synagogue that happened 2 years ago. And it's kind of just thinking about the stuff in Charlottesville where they were chanting blood and soil, and thinking about, kind of the return of anti-Semitism in America and what my grandpa fled and what's coming back. Maybe I'll just read the last poem, which is a collection of all the last lines. And although it doesn't make as much sense as the rest of them, I think that there's a really cool kind of conclusion that happens here. Spreading out beyond sight into warm dark of a land I was never allowed to love. I only know we had to leave, set upon the golden stolen ground, as oak saplings thread roots between thin bones. In the backyard of the local linen factory, all so much quieter now. Stomachs sore, feet unsure, they walked together to the train, watching the sunset from the window of a rented room. A secret I could die for on certain streets. The same song sung from Auschwitz to Charlottesville. And in my dreams, I walked with grandfather to town.
Thank you, Alex. And check out the book online to support the press and this local poet's work.
And that's all for this week's episode of the Mountaineer Podcast.
Pick up this week's edition of The Mountaineer in print.
And go online to www.themtnear.com to catch up on more local news. I'm Art DeVitalis.
And I'm Cynthia Davis. Until next time, thank you for listening.
And that's it for our show. Subscribe online to get more access to more news, weekly updates to our community calendar, and a link to our YouTube channel by visiting themountaineer.com. Be sure to use the coupon code PODCAST when subscribing for a 10% discount, only available to our listeners. If you are in the local Peak to Peak area, be sure to pick up a print edition of The Mountaineer at a local business. I'm Dango Rose. Thank you for listening.